CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to our viewers here in the United States and all around the world. I'm Lynda Kinkade with CNN's breaking news coverage of Israel at war. The Israeli military says it will allow people in North Gaza safe passage to southern Gaza during a 6-hour window starting this hour. The IDF also says an airstrike on Friday killed the senior Hamas commander who was behind much of last weekend's carnage. The United Nations is slamming Israel for ordering the mass evacuation of Palestinians from northern Gaza and allowing those people so little time to get out. One official called it outrageous and said it defies the rules of war and basic humanity. Tens of thousands of people have already fled south over the past 24 hours, but many others are staying put. Thousands of leaflets were dropped over Gaza Friday telling civilians not to come back until the IDF tells them so. Earlier, an Israeli army spokesperson explained why the evacuation order was necessary.
Anybody who wants to prioritize his safety should heed our warnings and go south of the Gaza River. I completely understand that it is far from an ideal situation, but this is the situation that we find ourselves in, and we are doing our best in order to minimize civilian casualties. That's why we're calling on them to leave out of a concern for their safety.
The sudden surge of people into southern Gaza has put a lot of pressure on the Rafah border crossing into Egypt, the only place to actually leave Gaza. Egypt says they've not closed it on their side, but its status is unclear due to Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza side. Israeli forces conducted raids inside Gaza Friday, searching for as many as 150 hostages still held by Hamas. The raids are the latest sign that Israel is ramping up operations against Hamas after the militant group's terror attacks inside Israel 1 week ago today. CNN's Nick Robertson reports.
Israeli troops inside Gaza for the first time since Hamas's attack last Saturday. A limited local raid targeting Hamas, searching for hostages, seemingly over by the time the IDF announced it late Friday. Not far away, northern Gaza's civilians are being forced into a life or possible death choice. Flyers dropped by Israel told them to flee south now, triggering concern at the UN.
The United Nations considers it impossible for such a movement to take place without devastating humanitarian consequences.
No deadline given by the IDF in their effort to minimize mounting civilian casualties.
We are asking them to evacuate so that we will be able to continue to strike military targets belonging to Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
Thursday night, the heaviest Israeli strikes on northern Gaza yet. But Hamas is telling its residents to stay put, setting the scene for a potential blame game over the rising Palestinian death toll.
Hamas actually gave a counter order to telling Palestinians in Gaza to stay at home. Why? Because having human shields, they think, protects them.
Puts them in places where they will be in danger. Puts them in places where they're used, in effect, to try to protect Hamas officials or their equipment or infrastructure.
All of this as Israel's troop buildup at the border grows, signaling a larger ground attack may be getting close. U.S. Secretary of Defense in country, making sure the IDF has what it needs.
I am here in person to make something crystal clear. America's support for Israel is ironclad.
And not just military support. EU leaders came close to Gaza to see for themselves where some of Hamas's most brutal murders were executed. But inside Gaza, fears escalating about what the coming days will bring.
Time is running out to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe if fuel, water, food and life-saving health and humanitarian supplies cannot be urgently delivered to the Gaza Strip.
Apprehension on both sides of the border growing as troops ready for an expected longer and much more dangerous raid. Nick Robertson, CNN, Sderot, Israel.
With us now from Israel is Mark Regev, Senior Advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Good to have you with us.
Happy to be with you.
So your government has announced it will give the 1 million civilians in northern Gaza safe passage for the next 6 hours, starting this hour to evacuate. What exactly does that mean?
That means we're urging people to leave an area where there will be, I believe, very, very severe combat. You have neighborhoods there where Hamas has built its underground tunnel fortifications and communication systems and arms depots under civilian housing. So we're asking people to leave as best they can. We know it can be difficult, but the alternative is worse. We don't want to see civilians caught up in the crossfire between us and the Hamas terrorists. And once again, we're urging people to move away out of what will become a very dangerous combat zone.
Is it likely the ground incursion will occur 6+ hours from now?
I can't go into that, and you, of course, understand why. One doesn't talk about operations, military operations, before they happen. But Israel is very serious. I want to say something that needs to be understood. We've had several rounds of violence since Hamas took over the Gaza Strip some 16 years ago. This is not another round of violence. This is war. We didn't want it. They declared war on us when they attacked us with the October 7th massacre. We are responding to protect our people. We're responding to eliminate a threat, a very severe threat, and we're urging civilians, please, for your own safety, vacate the combat zone.
Is it likely Hamas terrorists will also vacate the combat zone?
It's possible some of them will try to escape with the civilians. We know that that's how they operate. They are ruthless. We've also seen reports that they've actually established roadblocks to try to prevent people from leaving the combat zone. That's terrible. Civilians who want to leave, first of all, are being told by Hamas to stay, but those who are leaving nevertheless are being held up at roadblocks. Hamas has no qualms whatsoever about using the Gaza civilian population as a human shield for its war machine. And in doing so, it's a double war crime, because first of all, when they target innocent Israeli civilians, that's a war crime, of course. And the terrible violence, the brutality that we saw in the 7th of October massacre, that just shows who they are. But the fact that they treat their own people in a similar way, that they say to them, don't move out of harm's way and we will prevent you from moving out of harm's way, that says everything you need to know about this Hamas organization. It really is ISIS type.
Can you explain the targets Israel has bombed so far in Gaza, and what more can you tell us about the terrorists that you've said have been killed?
So we've been hitting Hamas strongholds throughout the Gaza Strip, and we will continue to do so. We've been hitting arms depots, we've been hitting tunnels, we've been hitting command and control centers. Hamas is going to come out of this, if at all, crushed. And that's our goal. You know, there were theories that maybe because Hamas, as I said a moment ago, they've been in power for 16 years and they're ruling a territory of land with some 2 million inhabitants, and that forces them as the government to be more responsible, to moderate their positions, to worry about their own civilian population. Well, anyone who thought that Hamas maybe was moderating, the October 7th massacre was a wake-up call. And the sort of brutality, the sort of horrific brutality that we saw Hamas demonstrate in the way it murdered innocent civilians and taking scores of people hostage, kidnapping them and taking them to Gaza. Anyone who had any illusions about Hamas, I hope, that the events of October 7th were a slap in the face, that they understand exactly the enemy we are dealing with.
As you mentioned, Gaza is home to over 2 million people. Almost half are children under the age of 18. Israel has cut off electricity, water, food, and fuel. Under humanitarian law, it's illegal to collectively punish civilians. At what point will Israel resume those key essential services for civilians?
You raised the issue of electricity, and I'll address that first. First of all, we know for a fact that Hamas uses the electricity grid inside Gaza for its own missiles. So the missiles that are being fired on Gaza, that's being facilitated by electricity. Second, the Hamas rockets that have rained down on Israel have disrupted and destroyed parts of the electricity grid that actually supplies Gaza. So is the international community, or is there a request that we rebuild what they have destroyed in their rockets so they can shoot more rockets at us? Is that a logical request of Israel?
Can you explain what this means for the civilians in Gaza, the 2 million people, half of which are children who won't be getting food and clean water into that region? When will that resume?
I cannot say at this stage. I can only say that we don't see, yes, we don't want to see the civilian population of Gaza caught up in the crossfire. Having said that, I know, and you know, that there hasn't been a war in recent history where there hasn't been humanitarian suffering as a result of armed conflict, where innocent civilians haven't been caught up in the crossfire. That it's not possible. But what we do as a democracy, if they deliberately target innocent civilians with their brutal violence, we make every effort to be as surgical as is humanly possible. We target the terrorists. We target those who are trying to kill our people. In so doing, we're defending our people, our own people. But Hamas has to understand they will be crushed, their military machine will be destroyed. When this is over, there will be a new reality in Gaza.
At this point in time, no one in Gaza can leave Gaza. No civilian can leave. Are you in talks with Egypt about opening that border crossing so that could be a potential humanitarian route for civilians to leave?
Any conversations we're having with the Egyptians will remain confidential. But I do say this. Inside the Gaza Strip, there are areas that we know will become combat zones, dangerous combat zones. Move out of those areas. And when I say they're going to become dangerous, they're going to become dangerous for the Israeli soldiers who may be operating there, because the Hamas has built its own defenses. It's got its elaborate system of underground tunnels, its booby traps. There could well be very dangerous house-to-house fighting. I'm a father. I've got a daughter who's serving in the IDF down south. I'm concerned about her. But she knows, and all her fellow soldiers know. This war we didn't want. It was forced upon us. But now that it's been forced upon us, we have to act decisively. We cannot allow this brutal ISIS-type terrorist organization to continue to thrive on our border. That is unsustainable for the betterment of Israel, for the protection of Israel, for the better future for the people of Gaza, and for peace in the Middle East. It's crucial that Israel have an overwhelming victory here, a decisive victory, and we will.
Hamas killed over 1,300 people in that brutal terror attack. Since then, we know that over 1,900 people have been killed in Gaza, including almost 600 children. What else is the IDF going to do going forward to minimize civilian casualties?
Well, we are. When we ask people to leave combat zones, we're trying to save lives. That's our goal. But can I urge CNN to be skeptical? Numbers coming out of Gaza are coming out of a Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health. And those numbers don't talk about combatants or non-combatants. And those numbers have an interest in escalating humanitarian crisis. I have no doubt that it's very difficult in Gaza. But they have, those numbers are coming from a Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health. I'd also like to add, with your permission, that Hamas's policy, if Israel is making efforts to try to minimize civilian casualties, it must be remembered, and we spoke about it a moment ago, Hamas is making every effort to maximize civilian casualties. They think it helps their propaganda. Why are they telling people not to leave combat zones? Why are they setting up roadblocks to prevent people from leaving combat zones? What's their motivation? And the truth is, they don't care a hoot about the people of Gaza. They are willing to sacrifice every last Gazan on their extremist, jihadist, ISIS-type agenda.
Just finally, how long do you think this conflict will last? What's the ultimate objective?
The objective is a new reality in Gaza, where Israel will not face a terrorist organization that has either the will or the capability to inflict the sort of horrific violence that we saw exactly a week ago this morning. That's the goal. And when that happens, and it will happen, it'll be better for the people of Israel, it'll be better for the people of Gaza, and it'll be better for the Middle East. And if we defeat the extremists, and we will, if they are crushed, and they will be, that hopefully will leave room and space for more moderate elements, and maybe it'll help us move forward in peace with our Arab neighbors.
Regev in Israel, we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.